A handful of prospectors today still work their claims under the same conditions that the Transvaal's first white gold hunters panned for the precious metal well over a century ago. Then the price of gold was a few pounds per ounce. Today, it's measured in hundreds. The gold hunters of the 1980s are not all old-timers. Take Brian McGibbon. He's a senior Johannesburg bank official. He spends his annual holiday at work on his claims here at the Lisbon Falls in the Eastern Transvaal.
I can tell you that most of my success in this area has been in the manufacture of equipment suitable for small workers. The gravel on this island probably averages 1 to 2 grams per cubic yard. One could probably move 15 yards a day with very hard work. Selected gravel, that would give you about 300 Rand a day before costs. I don't think you're going to make a fortune here. It's not an easy get-rich place. But it's good, honest living in open air with nature, and I think it's great fun.
Now here's a paradox. Gold is one of the heaviest metals, and yet here in the prospector's pan it floats. Why? Because in its natural form in the gravels of the riverbed, each tiny grain of gold has become coated with mineral oils. The oils are lighter than water and tug the particles of gold to the surface. If the prospector wants to save these well-nigh invisible grains of gold from being sluiced out with the gravel, he has to add a few drops of detergent to the water, which cuts through the oil and causes the grains of gold to sink back to the bottom. All that remains then is to throw the useless gravel away and discover the gold. Barring the addition of a petrol-driven pump, McGibbon's gold recovery plant is as simple and direct as the systems used by the gold hunters who originally mined these rivers a century and more ago. Water and gravel is directed through a funnel which contains traps designed to hold back the gold and let the lighter gravels through. The rich concentrate of heavier minerals is then panned in a giant pan. And then, if you're wise and meticulous and determined and very, very lucky, you may end up, after a hard day's toil, with 20 or 30 or even 40 grams of gold. The prospectors who stumbled across these golden streams in the 70s and 80s of the last century fancied themselves the true discoverers of all this African wealth. In fact, other men had beaten them to it by at least 8 centuries. This goblet, just 5 centimeters across and as deep, was discovered in the northern Transvaal on a farm near Messina. It is the work of the Mapungubwe people who flourished briefly between the 11th and 12th centuries. 800 years before the discovery of gold in the eastern Transvaal, the Mapungubwe were mining it in the north, and from it they fashioned the most delicate beads and bangles and other ornaments. They made this mace, which was probably used to symbolize the chief's authority. And most wonderful of all, they made a rhino out of their gold, which glitters today as brightly as it ever did under the fingers of the artist who created it. These are the origins of gold in our country. And when gold has at last vanished from our stage, as in the end it must, these images will remain. The prospector in patient pursuit of his few grams of gold a day, and the works of those unknown people of the north whose best memorial is this bright handful of golden artifacts.
If you'd like any more information about any of the metals featured in this series of programs, then send a postcard to Mini Films, care of Mintek, Private Bag X3015, Randburg 2125.